Welcome to the first episode of Capitol Happenings. I'm Rob Kendall, along with Indiana State Senator Jim Merritt. Senator, thanks for being with us today.
Good day.
All right, so tell us a little bit about why you want to do this show, because you are all about transparency in government.
Absolutely. Welcome, audience. It's really a thrill to be able to have a radio show and a podcast, and I really believe that people need to know what is going on in the State House. Not that they don't know, but we just want to add a little more flavor and a little more insight of actually what is happening with legislation and issues that we're going to tackle next year.
Well, let's meet you a little bit, because you're going to be our expert here as we guide our listeners and viewers through the legislative session. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you love Indiana.
I do, and I've been in the Senate for 26 years. I represent the northeastern part of Marion County and Fall Creek Township in Fishers, Hamlin Southeastern. And my wife and I live in the Geist area, and we have 3 kids that 2 live in central Indiana and 1 lives in Chicago. And I enjoy politics. I enjoy people. And I consider myself a constituent senator along with an issue senator.
Now, one of the big deals, people may say, man, I've heard of this guy's name before, and one of the huge topics that you're tackling right now is this issue with heroin.
Absolutely. It really evolved from alcohol on college campuses with the Lifeline Law to what we are trying to scale right now with the heroin epidemic. And we have to start working on a 5-year plan, I believe. I think it's going to take us 5 years to kill heroin. And this is an opiate problem that Mexico played a large role with heroin, dirty heroin coming in, along with the pill mills of the 90s and pain medicine and subscriptions and surgeries that went wrong. And there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Insurance companies, we all play a role here. And anybody living in Indiana is affected by this epidemic.
Again, the show is Capitol Happenings, and Senator Jim Merritt going to be our guide through the Indiana legislature this year, because it's a big, crazy deal. I mean, it's nuts, right? Trying to keep up.
It is nuts. We have approximately 1,500 bills that will be introduced this year. And as you know, there are 50 state senators and 100 representatives, and this year is like every 2 years where we have a budget, a 2-year budget that we have to craft. And obviously school funding is the elephant in the middle of the room.
Right.
It's the largest piece of the budget. But we also have this opioid crisis along with transportation. And we all want good roads. We all want good highways. And I think those topics, those top 3 topics will dominate time here. And there will be issues that come up that we have no anticipation. That's why we're going to be coming from the State House, hopefully every week, to talk to you about issues that you might not have heard about.
And you're going to have great guests for us.
We are going to have great guests. We're going to have legislators. We're going to have statewide officials like Kelly Mitchell, state treasurer. We may interview an intern. We just want to give an inside view that most Hoosiers can't see. And I think they will be interested in that.
And this show's going to evolve, and as we're putting this together, this is sort of our pilot episode here.
It is.
And like any great TV show, the final product is nothing like the pilot, right?
Well, hopefully we won't have too many bugs. But I'm really looking forward to it, because transparency is something we need. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but radio and TV is something that I feel very strongly that we can deliver the message and give just kind of those that are curious of actually what goes on inside the State House the knowledge that we're doing something big.
So we're going to, a couple different ways you're going to be able to participate in this show. We're going to have a video that we're going to be loading to YouTube. We're going to have a podcast you're going to be able to listen to. We're hoping as we go along that this will be on radio stations across the state. And I think it speaks a lot to you that you're willing to give of your time for this, because you got all these other things going on, but you really want to do this show.
Oh, absolutely. I love radio, and I grew up listening to the radio on my mom's station wagon radio system, and I enjoy people, and it's something. I get questions a lot about being a U.S. senator versus an Indiana senator. So I think it's every opportunity I have to educate people and kind of give a little idea of exactly what we're all about. Is a good opportunity, and we want opportunities for service.
Well, and we want to thank our first affiliate picking up the show. It's my station, WYRZ 98.9. So we're going to be running this show each week on there, and I know we'll be picking up affiliates as we go along. But we'll also have the podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes. We'll be telling people more about how you can pick that stuff up. But talk with Senator today about what we were going to talk about, and we're not in session yet.
No.
But you guys have already had a big day of everybody getting together, and that's called Org Day.
Right.
Tell us about Org Day.
Well, it's Organization Day, so it's relatively simple. It's black and white, but we have new members in the House and the Senate, and they've got to find the bathroom. And they take their desk on the Senate floor, and they're sworn in. And we're doing all the quote-unquote housekeeping so we don't have to do it in January. People are going through seminars right now on how a bill is filed, how a bill is written, then filed, and just the whole system. And Organization Day is really just to get our way set for the first day, January 3rd.
Obviously, a new governor coming in as well. Somebody you know very well, Eric Holcomb. What do you think are going to be some of the agenda items that he's going to bring to the legislature, and he's going to say, hey, we need to get this done?
Well, it's an exciting time in Indiana. We have a new U.S. Senator, Todd Young, that's going to take over, and we have a new governor. We have a new lieutenant governor, Suzanne Crouch, and she'll be presiding over the Senate as the lieutenant governor does.
She's great.
She is wonderful. She's our state auditor, hails from Evansville, Indiana, and just a lot of changes. I expect governor, you can call him governor because lieutenant governor, when you see that person, you can call them governor. So Governor Holcomb, I expect him to have a very energetic, interesting agenda come State of the State. And we will be interviewing him to preview the State of the State come January. And we will be hopefully giving you not a line by line, a really good idea of what his State of the State speech is going to be about, because that is really the essence of setting the agenda for the session. And since we're a Republican Senate, Republican House, and Republican governor, his agenda will be our agenda, and we will be very happy to follow his lead.
Again, the program is Capitol Happenings with Indiana State Senator Jim Merritt. I think it's interesting. People think you're a U.S. Senator.
Yes. There's a lot of stories about somebody being in line at the grocery, one of our members, and they said, "I thought you were voting on the Senate floor tonight." He'd answered this question so many times. He looked at his watch. He said, "I'm going to get the 7:00 flight." So he'd been asked so much. So if we can educate or relate to people, just really the ABCs of the legislature, that'll be a good start.
And again, my name is Rob Kendall. Senator Merritt's been kind enough to ask me to help sort of guide through this thing each week, and that's a real honor. I'd followed your work for a long time, and I was amazed at. A lot of people think elected officials, you can't get to them. Like, I just sent you a message and said, I'd like to have you on my show, my Central Indiana Today show. And you said, oh, yeah, absolutely. You love talking about government.
And I don't mind taking questions. And I get stopped at Walmart and Sam's Club and Meijer and all the rest of the big box stores and even neighborhood hardware store. And I listen. And I think that's the biggest part of being a legislator is listening to your audience, listening to your constituents. And I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing people and swapping stories and ideas. And a lot of the ideas that we will be coming up with for the opiate scourge, the Kill Heroin in 5 years program, has been learned from the Attorney General's Bitter Pill. It's been learned from doctors. It's been learned from hospitals. We will have a very creative, very comprehensive Kill Heroin in 5 years program agenda for this next session. And I'm excited about it because we have to have progress. We have to have more than an incremental change in killing heroin.
And again, I will be nicer dressed for the rest of them. I was downtown when we had to put this together, so it was a little hard. I will be matching the senator in a suit and tie going forward because you're such a nice dresser, by the way.
Well, it's I really believe that this is going to be something that people are going to look forward to when they hear it on the radio.
Yeah, and it's really cool because these are things that should have existed for a long time, and it's really neat as a radio guy for me to be able to do this. But that camera right there, it's so different. Every time Fox 59 when they ask me do TV or something, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to dress up. Radio, you never have to worry about anything other than talking.
Yeah, well, we will put on a very good show. You'll enjoy the guests. You'll enjoy the issues. we'll have facts and figures and some surprises along the way.
All right, so we talked about Org Day, and I think what it would be like to be a new senator. John Crane, obviously, new senator in Hendricks County. What is it like for these freshman senators that come in on Org Day?
Well, I'm sure Senator Crane and Senator Dorio and the rest of them will be quiet for a little while because it is quite complicated at the start. Luckily, there's not a whole lot going on in the first week of January, but I have every confidence that Senator Crane and the rest of the freshman legislators, because there are a lot of them in the Senate and the House, and we just added one the other day when Senator Banks resigned and went on to Congress. And so we have constantly adding new voices, and it's great to have new ideas, new thoughts in the legislature. And it's amazing how much the legislature turns over every year. Almost 20% turnover every election.
Isn't that bad of a job? Is that the deal? I mean,
well, we want fresh thought, and we have. When I broke in 1990, we didn't have a whole lot of turnover, but now we do, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have those new ideas and freshness about the place.
You know, again, the show is Capitol Happenings. Thanks for watching or tuning in on via podcast. Again, you'll be able to find us on SoundCloud and iTunes as well. In the meantime, if you want to listen to the podcast, you can just search Central Indiana Today. That's my daily program. This is going to be podcast there, so people can go back and listen to it anytime you want, right to your smartphone or tablet.
Absolutely,
that's simple. You can be at the office.
Great.
Work if you're supposed to be working, though, right? But if you got a lunch break or something, plug it in and listen. I'm Rob Kendall, along with Indiana State Senator Jim Merritt. I'm curious about this because I've had a chance to interview several of our congressmen in Indiana since the election, talking with other members of government. There seems to be an optimism about our nation and our state that hasn't been there recently. I'm curious if you feel that as well walking around the State House.
Oh, I think there is a positivity, and I agree with you with Congress. It's kind of a rare opening in time that we have new president, we have a new governor, and I hate to keep going back to the term fresh, but fresh ideas, and I think that bodes well for the legislative session coming up and for the next 4 years, if you will. And so, yes, I do feel that way. And if you have interest in the legislature itself, we stream live all committee meetings and we stream live our sessions on the Senate and House floors. And if someone really has an interest in following the legislature on a bill or an issue or an individual member, it's relatively simple to do that on your computer.
Let's talk about that for a minute because it is a really wonderful thing, and you're way ahead of much of the rest of the country in this transparency. So let's start there. The live streaming of the events,
right? That's
a great thing.
It is a great thing, and we all the stats, if you will, all our votes are online, and how much money we raise in our campaigns, everything is right in the internet and can be found. It's interesting when kids, fourth graders, come on the Senate floor when they're having a field trip from school, and I talk to them. We have these cameras that look a little funny. They don't look like they're like little white pods,
right?
And they ask the question, "What is that up on that ledge?" There are cameras everywhere on the floor, and we want to make sure that if somebody has an interest in an issue, and if it's going to be on the floor and debated, they can see it.
Senator, one other thing, talking about transparency, there's actually a thing called the Transparency Portal.
Exactly.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's something that you can open up into state government and get about anything you want or anything you can think of. All the agencies are there. Anything that has anything to do about state government, you can find on the transport.
How much money spent on things of that nature.
Absolutely, it's the Transparency Portal is omnipotent. It's right there. All the information is in one place. One-stop shopping is probably overused, overworn, but it is right there.
Again, the show is Capitol Happenings with State Senator Jim Merritt. I'm Rob Kendall. And again, we're going to be having great guests on this program. We're going to be interviewing, you talked about Governor-elect Holcomb, and you may have a special surprise for us next week. And I think that's going to be really cool for people to get an opportunity to hear from the elected officials. And the other great thing is they're going to be interviewed by an elected official. It's not some, guy like me that's, some clown. It's somebody that knows what's going on, right?
Well, it's interesting. We have also interesting people that come to be honored in front of the Senate and the House. One of my favorites was Jeff Gordon right after he won the first Brickyard.
Yeah.
And I spent about 10 or 15 minutes with him, and what a great person. Has done so much for Riley Hospital. And we will have individuals who win state awards or are in the state that are icons that we'll try to pick off and interview. And there will be something different every show, and I'm just really excited about relating it to the Hoosiers of Indiana.
And maybe someday we'll be on television. Maybe they'll like us enough to put us on TV.
Maybe so. And I'm just happy with what we're doing now and getting the ideas and getting the information out to our friends.
Now, obviously, session not in yet, and I want to circle back to something that we could kind of talk about that is a huge issue. It's something I see you in the news all the time for this issue, and I know it's a big thing for you, and that is heroin. And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I want to go back to it because we're approaching the holiday season where people are with their friends and loved ones. This is an epidemic. This is a crisis issue in Indiana. Talk with us a little bit about what some of the plans are, maybe, where we're currently at and what some of the plans are to try to address this issue.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. That's what I love about this radio show. We started out years ago talking about stigma. And it should not have a stigma because this heroin epidemic, regardless if it's financial or health-wise, it has an impact on the family. It has an impact on every one of us. And there are companies out there that can't employ people because either someone didn't pass a drug test and they had to fire them, or they couldn't hire them because they couldn't pass a drug test. And so it affects everyone. We have anywhere between 250,000 to 300,000 Hoosiers who are struggling with an addiction that's attached to opiates. And it's something that is very concerning to me, and it has a health impact along with an economic impact.
So what, as a legislature, what can you do? Because there's a lot of different theories on this, and a lot of people say you can't stop people from harming themselves. So what steps has the legislature taken, and what maybe are they going to take coming up to try to deal with this?
Well, we just finished a drug task force that the governor had sponsored and asked for and recommended, and that just really scratched the surface. We went everywhere in the state of Indiana learning about different problems in Department of Corrections, Scott County, a variety of places, Northwest Indiana, and we also were exposed to a lot of great ideas that may be out there that are out there that we can copy and steal.
Talk about the work of Jerome Adams, the health commissioner.
Right.
I know he's done an outstanding job. Great guy. I've had a chance to visit with him before. I know he's really, really taking this very serious and actually got to meet with President-elect Trump on this topic.
And lucky me, he's a constituent.
Oh, that's great.
And Dr. Adams is somebody that is iconic in the fight against heroin. And obviously going in and talking with President Obama demonstrates that he's got the credibility. And he has jumped into this feet first. And he and his deputy commissioner, Jennifer Walthall, have done a terrific job of being knowledgeable and suggesting ideas and fighting through the Hep C and the HIV of Scott County in that area of the state. And they have had a lot on their plate. The idea that we would run out of Narcan, but then state police and the Department of Health came to the rescue, and voila, we have Narcan. Narcan does not enable you. Narcan is something that is an opiate, that is an anti-opiate that rescues life. It's an antidote for an opiate overdose, and something that we need to continue to have on the front lines with EMTs and law enforcement and first responders. But we have to get by that. We have the stigma that we tried to kill, and we've offered the antidote, Narcan. Now we need to talk about a detox, treatment, and recovery system of care. And right now, people feel as though if you're struggling with a heroin addiction, you almost have to commit a felony to go inside Department of Corrections to get treatment in Indiana. It's either that or you go to Michigan, Arizona, California, Florida, and we have to set up a system somewhere in our state, probably throughout our state, to care for our Hoosiers who are willing to come forward and get clean and not struggle anymore with death around the corner with heroin overdose.
I had a chance to host a forum for the America's Future Foundation. This has been several months ago now. It's much warmer then. That's what I remember. It's much warmer. It's like 9 degrees today. But I had a chance to do that and talked with the prosecutor and someone who'd been inside the correctional system about this issue. And it just seems almost like it's an unsolvable issue because we want to get people help, yet we want to protect people from themselves, yet we want to respect individual rights and liberties. And I don't envy you guys at all because I don't know what the solution is.
Well, I think you have to start with the basis of it's a disease or an illness. Addiction is. It's not a character flaw. And I've heard this many times, but it bears repeating. We're not going to rest our way out of it. These are nonviolent people who made a mistake or made countless mistakes that we need to help. We need to provide hope. We need to figure out what is that we can help them with, and arm the folks that are so talented in our medical industry to help them, and understanding that it is such a difficult road to hoe with addiction, because there are a lot of people there that just can't stop, and it's just very difficult regardless of if they're living under a bridge or not.
Yeah. Again, the program is Capitol Happenings. I'm Rob Kendall, along with State Senator Jim Merritt. Got a couple minutes left here. One of the issues and one of the ways I met you was to interview you about this issue is the Indiana Lifeline law.
Yes. And
again, we're not in session yet, so not a lot of bills to talk about yet. We want to save the juicy stuff for the first of the year.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Lifeline law because a lot of people may be viewing this that have young people in their house, children that are of teenage or college age. Tell us about the Lifeline law.
Well, I very much appreciate it. I spend a lot of time on college campuses talking about this, as well as in high schools, and maybe even a middle school or two. And what this is several years ago we came to the conclusion that on college campuses they were calling 911 a lot because there were inebriated people, and obviously it's a nonviolent offense. And what the seniors, or excuse me, the presidents of these student bodies would come to talk to me about was we need an alcohol amnesty law. And I thought about it for about 30 days because I had kids in college at the time, but I felt as though lives were being lost, and we needed to put a little more common sense in it. So what the law says is that if you're under 21, you're in a social situation or not, and you have a friend who is looks like alcohol poisoning, and you feel he or she is harming their lives and risking their lives, call 911. You have immunity, and those parents that have kids, talk to your kids about this, because the last thing we want them to do is panic, and because everybody is worried about their future. Worry about what is in front of you. Make the call, and you can also text. And what we call it is Text 911 Lifeline.
Yeah.
And that is really a big part of this is kids are texting now. They're not making phone calls. And it can be a little easier at a party texting 911. So all 92 counties can do that now.
All right, so one other topic that I wanted to get with you, and I'm sure we're going to get into the details of this one once session starts, and maybe we will even have one of the bill's authors on the show. But somebody said, hey, several people said, you've got to ask Senator Merritt about this. Is this bill that involves being able to take DNA from people when they're accused of a felony? So can you kind of take us through maybe just a brief overview on this and maybe what the discussion is going to be?
Sure. This is an issue that I've worked on for a long time. As long as DNA and technology have allowed us to talk about that being an identifiable tool to solve crimes, or to convict someone, or to help someone get out of jail because they've been wrongly accused. There are so many ways to describe this, and I believe that today's fingerprint is DNA. And but I also will tell you that when we arrest someone, I believe their DNA ought to be taken along with their picture and their fingerprint. But if that person is rendered innocent, that DNA should be eliminated. We should not be able to keep that DNA on file if that individual is innocent. I really strongly believe in the civil liberties of that. But we should take it upon arrest. Right now, if you're convicted, your DNA is taken before you're placed in you're incarcerated. So it has a long way to go. I worry that we don't have the best storage system for a system such as this. That will be discussed, and so there will be a financial question for this, a financial impact for this. But the bottom line is we've seen DNA. Just recently, Ohio helped us convict someone that was murdered in Zionsville. We've seen DNA play a large role in convicting or exonerating someone. So I believe it's a great tool for the law enforcement toolbox. And I think it's something we need to approach slowly. But I think by the end of session, I think we should have a good law so we can make sure that we put guilty people behind bars.
It's really going to be fascinating how this plays out, because I know you guys have brought this forward in the legislature before, and it's going to be fascinating because I'm sure there's going to be a civil liberties debate. And the key is, because you've spent your whole life or your whole legislative career doing this, is to get good legislation, not quick legislation. And if that means you got to revisit it, as you did last year, now this year, or this year, now next year, get it right.
Exactly, and we want to get it right. And just to repeat, keeping someone's DNA that is innocent is not acceptable to me. And we do want to get it right.
I don't want to be cloned.
No.
I'm very concerned. if I'm going to be cloned, I want to have some of the profits.
We don't want two Robs around. But at the end of the day, I think we can come with a great public policy that can help keep people out of jail sometimes, because a lot of times this DNA can exonerate you.
Senator, I want to close with this. I want to speak to our audience and obviously to you to say thank you for doing this. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. I'm super excited about it. There's really nothing like this being done or has been done where we can speak directly and very candidly with someone of your position. So just wanted to give you some closing comments today to talk about this, because I know it means a lot to you to be able to do it as well.
Oh, thank you. For the last 26 years, I've worked really hard to be in touch with people, and that's what's so exciting about this radio show and hopefully TV show someday, is that I can speak directly to you, and you can too. And I think that's the key. That's what you want in your public servants, is access and transparency, and somebody that you can relate to and you can know. And so that's what's so exciting about this show. And it should be hopefully that people tune in or listen. You will not be bored. We will get it done.
Yeah, so we're going to have a more firm schedule as we come to the first of next year, at least for the time being. I think we're going to look at doing Thursdays, trying to get our video blog up Thursday nights, or the audio blog up Thursday nights, or at least recording it on Thursdays like we're doing today and I think next week. But once we get to session, we'll have a more firm schedule. So, right. Senator, thanks for being with us, and this is going to be very exciting.
It is.
Okay, this was our first episode of Capitol Happenings with State Senator Jim Merritt. Until next time, I'm Rob Kendall. Thanks for joining us today.